They came screaming through the smoke, their bodies covered in armor, black as night, their eyes burning like fire. They did not slow down, they did not wait, they did not fear, they just ran forward, through a storm of plasma bolts and explosions, as if they were chasing something they had lost long ago, the alien. Commander Keller stood frozen at the edge of the crater, watching them descend upon the outpost like a swarm of cursed spirits. He had never seen anything like this before, not in all his campaigns, not in all his wars. The humans did not move like trained soldiers. They moved like a single beast with 1,000 hearts and only one mind. They shouted at each other, but not out of fear. They shouted encouragement. They shouted names. They shouted promises of survival. They shouted memories of home as they tore through walls with bare hands and lifted comrades off the ground as if gravity had no hold on them. One of Keller's scouts trembled behind a shattered pillar, blood dripping from his side, his face pale, his hands shaking. He had fought war beasts from the fire moons and lived. He had survived the screams of the vornic acid fields, but he looked now like a child facing the dark. The scout whispered, "Commander, they smile when they bleed." Keller turned sharply. "What did you say?" The scout nodded, tears in his eyes. "A smile when they bleed, Commander. I shot one of them, his arm came off, and he looked at me and smiled like he was happy to feel pain." Keller narrowed his eyes, watching the battlefield below as the last of his front line collapsed under the weight of human fists and rage. They fought with guns, yes, but when the bullets ran out, they fought with rocks, with knives, with shattered helmets and broken metal. They turned debris into weapons. They turned their own bodies into battering rams, and not once, not a single one, turned their back. Even when wounded, even when falling, they kept moving forward. His communications unit crackled the voice of Central. Command asked for a status report. Keller hesitated, then replied, "They are not soldiers. They are something else entirely. These are not beings. We can predict they are not here for conquest. They are here for something deeper, something more personal." The voice on the other end asked, "Do you mean vengeance?" Keller looked again this time. His eyes settled on a human dragging a wounded ally across the firelit field. His armor was cracked. His face bloodied, but his voice was calm. He kept saying, "I got you, buddy. Stay with me. I got you." The wounded man groaned, but the other one held him tighter. "We go home together. You hear me? We go home." Keller answered the call again. "No, this is not vengeance. This is love, and love makes them terrifying." The battlefield was now a graveyard of metal and screams, but the humans were not slowing. They were picking up speed, their fury rising not from bloodlust, but from heartbreak, from watching one of their own fall, from hearing the cry of a wounded friend. Keller stepped back. He felt something in his chest, something unfamiliar. It was not fear, it was something deeper, something heavier. He watched as one of the human captains stood tall in the middle of the flames, calling out positions and flanking orders, while his leg dragged behind useless. His comrades did not treat him like a liability. They called him Sir with pride. They followed him like he was a star in the sky, leading them through the dark. Keller had studied human tactics for years. He had read their histories, he had seen reports. He had prepared for their weapons, for their ships, for their technology, but no report had warned him about this. No data had captured the soul of these beings. They were not the most powerful species. They were not the fastest or smartest, but they were united in a way that shook the foundation of war itself. He saw a young alien soldier try to run, but a human grabbed him, pulled him down, shielded him from falling debris, then let him go. Keller blinked. Was that mercy? Was that compassion in the middle of battle? The human did not hesitate. The human did not look back. He simply saved a life and returned to the fire. Keller stepped back again. His claws trembling, he turned to his officers. "Prepare a retreat. Now evacuate whoever is left." The officers hesitated. "Commander, the War Council ordered us to hold," Keller snapped. "If you want to die trying to understand why they are winning, stay here. Otherwise, move." The soldiers scattered, running to escape. While the humans stormed the final walls, Keller stood alone for a moment longer, watching the field. The smoke began to lift, the sun began to rise, and in the morning light, he saw them clearly, bruised, burned, bleeding, but standing tall, lifting their wounded, carrying their dead, singing low songs about home, about brothers and sisters, about a blue planet far away. They did not look like victors, they looked like survivors, like protectors. Like family? Keller turned and walked away slowly, his heart heavy. His mind spinning, he had witnessed something ancient, something eternal, something terrifying, and as he sent his final message to High Command, his words were few but clear. The most terrifying thing about human armies is not how they fight, it is why they fight, and that is something we will never match. If he did not retreat even when dying, this was the first thing Keller saw as the second wave of human forces arrived. Their uniforms torn, their skin burned, their blood mixed with dirt, but they still marched forward with eyes locked on the horizon. Keller watched from a ridge overlooking the battlefield where the last of his defensive turrets had fallen. The humans had suffered losses, but their numbers had not decreased. Instead, they carried their wounded on makeshift stretchers or even on their own backs. Some limped, some crawled, some leaned. I word I win jive Stopped one soldier with his chest soaked in blood, refused to be taken to the rear, he screamed. At the medic to put someone else on the stretcher, someone who could still be saved. Someone who had children, someone who still had time. The medic argued, tears running down her face, but the wounded man grabbed her collar and whispered something into her ear. Keller could not hear the words, but the expression on the medic's face changed. She nodded reluctantly and ran to help another fallen human. The man who had refused help leaned against a broken wall, lifted his rifle with trembling arms, and waited. Keller blinked in disbelief. He had seen warriors give their lives in combat, but never like this, not willingly, not when they had a chance to survive, not when they had family or purpose waiting back home. He turned to his second in command, a young officer named Jorik, and asked what drives them like this. Jorik hesitated, then handed Keller a data tablet. It was footage taken from a human ship. Intercepted days ago, a message sent from one soldier to his daughter. It said, "I will not let monsters touch your world, baby girl. I will stand even if my legs fail. I will hold the line even if my heart gives out, because I want you to laugh, I want you to dance. I want you to be free." Keller stared at the message, his throat tightening. This was not strategy, this was not calculation, this was something no war college had prepared him for. As the battle raged on, a human soldier was seen charging forward with only a knife. He had no helmet, no shield, no support. He ran at 3 alien warriors, slicing, dodging, bleeding, and still screaming until he brought 2 of them down with him. The third alien tried to back away, shaking in panic, but the human grabbed him with one last surge and pulled him into the dirt, both of them unmoving. Keller turned away, his heart pounding faster than it had in any battle before. He felt sweat forming under his armor. The air felt heavier with every breath. He saw another human kneeling beside a fallen friend, whispering words into the lifeless ear. "I will finish what we started, you hear me? I will make sure your name is remembered. I will carry your story on my back." They placed a simple mark on the ground, a name etched into a piece of broken metal, and moved forward as if grief was fuel not. Wait, Keller realized then that death did not weaken these humans. It made them stronger, it made them louder, it made them fight harder, as if each fallen comrade gave them a new reason to live. The alien ranks began to fracture. Young soldiers panicked, watching the humans approach with torn flags and blood-stained fists. Morale shattered not because of how many humans came, but because of how few turned back. There was no retreat, no surrender. Only forward movement like a storm that could not be Stopped. Jorik stepped forward again. Commander, we cannot win. Not like this. Our soldiers do not understand this kind of war. Keller nodded slowly, his eyes still locked on the battlefield. Neither do I, he whispered. A human squad emerged from the smoke. Dragging their captain, who had lost an arm, the captain tried to push them away, saying, "Go, leave me," but the soldiers refused one of them. A small young woman, no older than 20, shouted, "Shut up, sir, you are coming with us, we are not leaving you." Behind they carried him through fire, through falling rubble, through enemy fire, and when they reached the next trench, the captain saluted them with his remaining hand, saying, "Thank you, you stubborn fools." Keller swallowed hard. The chain of command among humans was not built on fear or control, it was built on love, loyalty, and sacrifice. Their discipline was not programmed, it was chosen again and again. With each act of mercy, with each refusal to abandon one another, Keller watched as another. A squad of humans passed by, one of them, limping with a shattered leg, using a bent weapon as a crutch, but when he saw a fellow soldier struggling, he passed his makeshift crutch to her and continued crawling forward on his own elbows. Commander Keller looked at his army broken are, uncertain, afraid, and he saw in them not failure but emptiness. They had trained to obey. They had trained to survive, but not to care, and that difference was costing them everything. Keller looked at the sky smoke rising around him and whispered to himself, "They do not retreat even when dying, because they are not here for orders, they are here for each other, and that is something we can never teach you. Can kill one but never break them." This was the sentence Keller could not get out of his mind. As he walked through the shattered remains of Outpost 9, his soldiers had managed to capture a single human alive, a sergeant named Alex, whose body was beaten and bruised, yet his eyes burned with the same unshaken fire Keller had seen on the battlefield. The alien interrogators tried every known technique: psychological pressure, sonic torment, neurodestabilizers, but nothing worked. The humans simply stared back at them, as if pain was something he had already made peace with. Keller stood in the observation room watching the humans strapped to the interrogation chair but sitting with his back straight, his mouth bloodied but smiling slightly, like he was already writing a song in his head about the moment he made his enemies nervous. "Commander," one of the interrogators said, "he is not responding. He refuses to speak, refuses to scream, refuses to flinch. He even laughs." Keller nodded. "Let me speak with him alone." The room was silent as Keller entered. The human looked up, eyes locked directly onto his, like they were equal, like they were rivals, or maybe something closer. Keller sat down in front of him, folding his arms, and said, "Why do you not fear death? Your body is broken, your army is far away, you are alone, and still you act like you have already won." The human replied slowly, "I am never alone. You can chain my body, but my brothers are with me in spirit. Every scream you expect will only echo their names." Keller tilted his head, confused. "Spirit names? What do you mean?" The human leaned forward. Even in pain, even with blood dripping from his lip, he spoke clearly. "My captain died, shielding me from shrapnel. He smiled as he died because he knew I would carry his last words home, and now his voice is in my head, telling me to keep going, telling me I am not done yet." Keller stared, unsure whether to admire or fear this response. He asked again, "What makes your kind so hard to break?" "I have seen empires fall, entire species surrender when cornered, but you keep rising." The human breathed deeply, then answered, "Because we know that pain is not the end, it is just the beginning, because we have something bigger than fear, something bigger than survival." Keller was silent. He stood and left the chamber, his heart heavy, the words ringing in his mind again and again. "You can kill one but never break them." Outside, he found his officers gathered around a fire, their morale low, their faces sunken in defeat. They whispered among themselves of the humans and their madness, how one man had been seen dragging two of his comrades through acid rain, how another had ripped a weapon from his own arm to hurl it at an enemy, how even when cornered they fought like wolves with nothing left to lose. Keller turned to his science. "Officer, have we found anything in their biology that explains this resilience, some kind of hormonal override?" Perhaps the officer shook his head. "No, Commander, they are not engineered for this. There is nothing unnatural in them. In fact, by our metrics, they should be fragile, more emotional, more susceptible to psychological damage, but they are not. They seem to draw strength from emotion. It's not weakness. Keller considered that for a moment. Humans draw strength from emotion. That would explain their songs, their letters, their memories. During wartime, it would explain the log they intercepted from a different human squad leader who had recorded a message for his unit before a suicide mission. He said, "If you find this and I am gone, know that. I loved serving beside you. Every joke, every meal, every midnight shift meant something. I do this because I believe in the world you are building, and that world is worth my life," Keller played the message over and over, then finally ordered it to be shown to his own troops. "Let them hear it," he said. "Let them see what they are fighting against. No more propaganda. No more lies." The aliens gathered in the central square, staring at the screen as the human voice played. They listened to words, not of conquest or hate, but of hope and trust and sacrifice. Some looked confused, others angry, but a few simply lowered their heads, their hands shaking as something cracked inside them. Keller knew then the humans had found a kind of weapon no species had ever dared to forge, a weapon of unity forged in fire and blood, a force that no pain could erase and no enemy could predict. That night Keller walked among his men and found one of them whispering to himself, repeating the human words like they were prayers. "I am not done yet. I am not done yet." Keller said softly to him, "What are you doing?" The soldier looked up, tears in his eyes. "I do not know, Commander. I just feel like these words mean something." Keller nodded. "They do. They mean everything." The next morning, Keller received word that another alien unit had defected, not because they were bribed, not because they were threatened, but because they had watched the humans fight and felt something awaken in them, something ancient, something lost. And when the human captives were found singing together through prison walls, the entire facility fell silent, their harmony echoing across the halls as if to say, "We are still here. We are not broken. We will never be. Their weakest link is there." Strongest weapon this was, the line Keller wrote at the top of his personal war journal as he stared at the images from the last battlefield. Drones had captured everything. The heat of the fire, the sound of human boots stomping through ash, the cries of soldiers, both alien and human. But what stood out, what silenced even the most hardened strategists, was the footage of a single human medic. She was small, thin, barely out of childhood, yet she ran through open fire, dragging the wounded one to safety, even when plasma rained around her, even when her own leg was hit. She screamed not in fear, but in frustration, shouting at her own body to move faster, to not let anyone die. Today she crawled on one knee toward an alien mother clutching her child caught in the chaos, and the medic shielded them with her own body. Her arms spread wide as enemy drones fired. She was knocked to the ground, but she rose again, her hands shaking as she lifted the crying child and handed her back to the alien woman. Keller replayed the footage again and again, unable to understand. What kind of army allowed such a thing? What kind of training made someone risk everything for someone who was supposed to be an enemy? His advisors said this was an outlier, a random act of madness, but Keller disagreed. He had seen too many of these moments. Now moments where humans carried their injured into the heart of danger, just to keep them safe. Moments where they stopped mid-battle to pull alien refugees out of collapsed tunnels. Moments where they placed their own survival second in someone else's life first. It defied logic. It broke every rule of warfare, and yet it worked. It shattered the fear in the hearts of their enemies and lit a fire in the hearts of those watching nearby. Even now, he could not forget the scene of a human soldier dragging a rival enemy from a burning tank, wrapping him in bandages, whispering, "Stay with me, brother. Stay with me," like the war had never divided them. Keller stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring at the map of zones. He was supposed to conquer sector after sector had fallen, but not in the way he had expected. They had not fallen to brute force or superior tactics. They had fallen to compassion, to unshakable unity, to love. One of his officers approached Commander. "We have a new problem. One of our own has crossed over to the humans." Keller turned slowly. "Another one?" The officer nodded. He left his gear, his weapons, everything. He just walked into their camp with nothing but a white cloth and said, "Take me. I want to understand." Keller closed his eyes, letting the silence hang in the air. He opened his journal again and added another line, "They do not fight for glory, they do not fight for orders, they fight because they believe in each other, and belief is something you cannot shoot or crush or erase." Days later, Keller entered a damaged town on the edge of the human front. He walked through crumbling buildings, past burnt-out transports and shattered walls, but what he saw next froze him in place. The humans were there not fighting, not yelling. They were rebuilding side by side with alien civilians. They lifted debris, cleared pathways, handed out food and supplies to people who only days ago had been their enemies. A child pointed up at a tall human who bent down and tied a noose. "Shoo for him," laughing gently as if this was home, as if war had never happened. One of Keller's scouts whispered, "What kind of creature does this? Helps the ones who tried to kill them," Keller answered slowly. "The kind we never prepared for, the kind who sees family where we see threats. The kind who believes peace is not given, it is built." He stepped forward as the human medic from the footage limped past him, carrying a crate filled with blankets and clean water. Her uniform was torn, her face scarred, but her eyes were clear, and her hands steady. She looked at Keller, nodded slightly, and kept moving without fear, without hesitation, without hate. Keller returned to his ship and stood before his officers. They looked at him confused, unsure what the next order would be. He spoke quietly. "They are not our enemy anymore, not because we cannot defeat them, but because we do not deserve to. They have shown us something we have lost the ability to protect. Even those who do not look like us, even those who once tried to harm us, we call them weak for their empathy, but their empathy is what makes them stronger than any army in the galaxy." "The Council will not like this," said Jorik. Keller replied. "Let them hate me. Let them strip me of rank. I will not raise my weapons against a species that heals the wounds we inflict, that feeds the mouths we leave hungry, that buries our dead with the same honor as their own. They are not monsters, they are mirrors. They show us what we could be, and that is the most dangerous thing of all. The rage is not for power, it is for love." Keller finally understood that truth as he stood at the edge of the ruined valley, watching a burning field where the battle had erupted less than an hour ago. Human soldiers rushed through smoke, not in pursuit of victory, but to recover the fallen. Each name was shouted like a prayer, each wounded brother or sister lifted with the care of family, not fighters, not pawns, but souls the enemy had tried to break them with. Surprised with numbers, with terror, but they did not count on this. They did not count on the humans fighting for one another, not for territory or pride, but for something deeper. One man ran straight through enemy fire, screaming a name over and over. A young woman trapped under rubble. She reached out her hand, eyes filled with pain and love, and he threw down his weapon, dropped to his knees, and began digging with bare hands, shouting, I have you, I came for you." They had said he was dead. They had tried to stop her from hoping, but here he was, pulling her free, holding her as she cried as the ruins collapsed behind them. Keller watched all of this from his vantage point, his heart trembling with each second. He had ordered dozens of campaigns across stars, but never had he seen a battlefield transform into something holy, not with silence, not with light, but with the sound of human hearts breaking and still beating. Stronger than before, he turned to the scout beside him. "What did we just witness?" The scout shook his head. "They lost half their unit, Commander, and still they smile, still they carry their wounded, still they whisper words of love into the smoke." Keller said softly, "It is not madness, it is not rage, it is not revenge, it is love." A message came through his, comes a command from the High Council. A final mission. They wanted the humans crushed, and they were done waiting. They had developed a bioweapon engineered to tear through human DNA, designed to be silent, fast, irreversible. Keller stared at the device in his hands, a smooth black capsule pulsing with energy. He held it like it was alive, like it could see him, like it already knew what choice he would make. Jorik approached, eyes filled with tension. "The Council expects us to use it tonight." Keller looked back at the field where humans held hands over fresh graves, where one soldier knelt and tied a bandage around the wrist of an alien child, where another wrote names into the dirt with trembling fingers, remembering those who had saved him. "I cannot do it," Keller said softly. Jorik froze. "Commander, this is our only chance to win. Keller did not turn. I no longer care about winning, Jorik stepped forward, voice rising. They will destroy us if we do not strike first. Keller turned now, his eyes no longer clouded by fear or pride. Then let them try, let them see what true strength looks like, not from weapons, not from domination, but from the decision to protect what we could destroy. Jorik was silent for a long moment, then whispered, "And what will you do now?" Keller walked past him slowly, toward the edge of the command deck. "I will watch, I will learn, I will tell the truth. If they call it betrayal, so be it, but I will not let history forget. What I saw today down in the valley, a human was lifting a broken body of a friend onto his back, dragging him through shattered glass and mud, crying as he said, 'I am not leaving you. We made a promise to go home together, and I will keep it even. If I carry you every step of the way.' And when that soldier reached the medical line, he collapsed beside the stretcher and said to the medic, 'Please take care of him. He saved my life. More than once. He deserves more than this.' The medic nodded, but the soldier did not move. He remained there beside his friend, holding his hand, whispering songs. Keller felt something sharp in his chest, something unfamiliar, something ancient. He turned back to his ship and stared at the black capsule in his hand, then threw it to the floor and crushed it under his boot. "No more," he whispered to no one and everyone. "I will not become the monster they believe we are. Humans are terrifying not because they seek war, but because they refuse to lose each other. Because their rage burns not for power, but for the ones they love. That is why they are unstoppable. Thought we feared their guns? We were wrong." The words echoed inside Keller's mind as his ship floated quietly above the war-torn planet below. Reports came in from every front. Human forces were still advancing, but not with overwhelming firepower, not with brutal weapons of mass death. They came bearing food, bearing water, bearing medicine. They marched into cities they had once fought in and opened supply crates, not for themselves, but for the enemy, for the civilians left behind, for the children hiding in shadows, and the elders. Too weak to flee, Keller watched the feed from his central console, where a human squad descended into an alien village. Once used as a forward command base, the buildings were half collapsed, the air thick with smoke and memory, but the humans walked through. Without raising their weapons, they removed their helmets, handed out food packets, lifted rubble, searched for signs of life. One of them, a tall woman with a scar down her cheek, knelt beside a wounded alien soldier and said softly, "We are not your enemy anymore." The soldier stared back wide-eyed, unsure if this was real, unsure if he had already died and gone. "Somewhere else," she smiled and pressed a canteen into his hand. "Drink, you need it more than do." Keller sat back slowly, his claws resting on the arm of the chair. This was not what the council had promised. This was not what they had trained for. They had warned him of monsters, of conquerors, of death, worlds overflowing with rage. Instead, he found men and women who cried when they had to shoot, who built shelters after battles, who left food behind for their foes, who buried the dead no matter which flag they wore. The human medic from earlier appeared again, this time guiding a group of children through a path cleared by human engineers. She held one of their hands tightly. The child, not even her own species, looked up at her and smiled, calling her big sister in a soft voice that made Keller's chest tighten. His second-in-command, Jorik, stepped onto the bridge. "Commander, the council has seen the footage. They are not pleased. They say you are spreading propaganda, that you are blinded." Keller turned and asked quietly, "What do you see?" Jorik hesitated, then looked at the monitor. One human was teaching a group of aliens how to repair a water purifier. Another stood watch outside a temporary medical tent, while singing a song under his breath. Jorik said slowly, "I see strength, but not the kind we were warned about." Keller nodded. "This is why they are feared, not because they burn everything they touch, but because they do not leave anyone behind, and that frightens those who rule." By fear and division, the door opened, and one of the human envoys entered. She wore no armor, only a simple jacket with a red cross stitched to the chest, her hair tied back, her eyes tired, but kind. She bowed slightly and said, "Thank you for agreeing to meet us, Commander. We came not to conquer, but to help." Keller replied softly, "Your actions say more than any words could." The envoy looked around, then placed a small data chip on the table. "This is our mission archive. Every life saved, every act of peace, every city rebuilt. We wanted you to know the truth, even. Ah, sure. If your leaders do not believe it, she turned to leave, but paused and said one more thing. When we go to war, we do not do it for glory. We do it because someone we love is in danger. We do it because we believe in each other, and that belief is stronger than fear. Keller closed his eyes and whispered belief. Jorek asked, "What now, Commander? Do we surrender?" Keller opened his eyes slowly. No, we do not surrender. We transform. We become something better, because we have seen what that looks like, and we cannot return to the darkness. The next day, Keller sent a message to every surviving unit, every planet still. Holding the Council's banner, he told them not to lower their weapons, but to look closely, to walk the fields where humans had passed, to listen to the stories of those who were spared, helped, protected. He ended the message with a single sentence: the most terrifying thing about human armies is not their power, but their purpose, and if you truly wish to defeat them, you must first understand what it means to love something so much you would die. Not for victory, but for the chance to save it. And when that message reached the outer colonies, something unexpected happened. Small squads laid down arms, not out of fear, but respect. Civilians stepped forward to help soldiers from both sides began to talk, and across a dozen sectors, the war simply stopped, not in surrender, but in silence. A silence filled with the sound of rebuilding. The most terrifying thing about human armies was never their weapons, never their ships, never their technology. It was something deeper, something ancient, something unbreakable. They did not come to destroy, they came to protect. And that made them unstoppable. Keller stood before the Grand Council of the United Species. His armor stripped, his rank dissolved, but his voice steady and calm. The chamber was silent, filled with leaders who had once ordered planets to burn with a gesture. Now they watched Keller, not with power, but with uncertainty, as he spoke. You warned us that humans were dangerous, and you were right, but not for the reasons you believe. They are not dangerous because they hate. They are dangerous because they love, and that love carries them across battlefields, through fire, through death, through pain. They fight not because they want to win, but because they want to keep each other alive. A counselor interrupted. You betrayed your orders. You refused to use the bioweapon. You disobeyed command. Keller did not flinch. I chose not to murder those who offered us mercy. I chose not to silence those who fed our children. I chose to live with honor, and now I choose to speak the truth. A screen behind him lit up. Footage played of human soldiers carrying both alien and human wounded through flooded tunnels, of a human nurse pressing her hands against the chest of an alien child, whispering, "Stay with me, you are safe," of a young human soldier playing a small handmade flute in a ruined village, while alien children laughed and clapped. Keller looked around slowly. This is the enemy you told us to fear. This is the force we were told would destroy us, and yet here they are, rebuilding, where we destroy, protecting, where we conquer, loving, where we hate. They are terrifying, because they show us what we could be, and we are not ready to face that truth. Another counselor growled, "What would you have us do then? Kneel before them, beg for peace?" Keller shook his head. No. You must learn from them, not kneel. You must understand that peace is not weakness, that love is not surrender, that protecting someone does not make you soft. It makes you strong. Truly strong. After the hearing, Keller walked alone through the streets of a neutral world, one rebuilt with the help of human aid workers. He passed clinics where human doctors treated alien injuries without asking for allegiance. He passed schools where human teachers sat with children of every species, explaining stories of stars and courage and hope. He passed a graveyard where human and alien names were carved side by side under the same sky, and he stopped there a long time. A single human soldier knelt by a grave. His uniform worn, his hands calloused, he placed a flower on the stone, then saluted silently, tears in his eyes. Keller approached slowly, and the soldier looked up surprised for a moment, then nodded respectfully. Commander, Keller said softly. You knew them? The soldier replied. Yes, sir. She saved my life twice, and I never got the chance to repay her, so I come here. When I can, I tell her what we have built, what she helped start. Keller looked at the grave. The name was simple, but the meaning behind it stretched across galaxies. He felt a deep weight in his chest, and said, "Thank you for reminding us of who we can be." The soldier stood, gave one last look at the grave, and walked Alway Keller remained behind as the sun began to rise, warming the stone and the earth around it. Later that year, the Galactic Council was dissolved, replaced by a new alliance, one built not on fear, but unity. The humans were not placed at the top. Nor did they ask to be. They remained where they always had, in the trenches, on the fields, beside those who needed them. Their armies still trained, still fought. But now they also built. Now they healed. Now they inspired in time. The phrase human army came to mean something different, not a force of destruction, but a force of protection. And when children asked what was the most terrifying thing about them, their parents would smile and say, "It is not their ships or their guns, it is the fact that they will never abandon you, not even when the stars fall, not even when the world burns. They will come for you. They will carry you. They will fight not for victory, but for you. And that is what makes them truly unstoppable." The end.